Beto, what are you doing?
Playing with my dinosaur toys, Lenny.
Okay, but they're not saying anything, and there's no rhyme or reason to what you're doing.
You're right, Lenny. They are not saying anything. Just like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom didn't say anything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, proceed then.
Proceed. So as we were just saying, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the 5th film in the Jurassic Park franchise, is a, shall we say, complete and utter letdown? Maybe?
Yep. I would totally agree.
This movie, directed by J.A. Bayona, who also directed The Orphanage and A Monster Calls, two vastly superior films to...
Vastly, that's such a great word.
Vastly superior films to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Man, those are actually well executed horror films, but...
yeah, this not so much, huh?
This not so much, Lenny.
It had a lot of horror aspects, but it did fall on its face.
The movie stars Chris Pratt as Owen and Bryce Dallas Howard as...
Claire.
Claire.
The lovable Claire.
Two characters that absolutely undergo no character development whatsoever.
Their arc is like this. That's their arc.
In Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah, so really, those are the two characters that you give any two beeps about, okay? But like you said, no character arcs. I mean, good acting for what they, for what they were given. That's about it.
Those are two characters you give very minor beeps about, Lenny.
Yeah, and the supporting cast, they're not very good, to put it lightly, and a lot of overacting, if you ask me.
A lot of like characters that you won't even remember. Like, really, I mean, I like Chris Pratt, I like Bryce Dallas Howard. They did a good job, as they always do. But really, I mean, you learn nothing new about these characters. It's like they're just there for you to see them in one action sequence, after another, and a lot of like cliched, horror trope action sequences. Jump scares galore. Predictable jump scares, predictable, horror action sequences.
Well, before we get ahead of ourselves.
Sorry. It's just,
in the trailer.
Back to the characters.
Right.
Yeah.
In the trailer, they do tease you with Jeff Goldblum's character of Ian Malcolm. And he is in this film for about all of like, what, maybe... not even 5 minutes. 3 minutes, maybe.
Why?
Yes.
Why is Jeff Goldblum back if he's not really going to be back?
Right.
I
mean, I feel like that's not too much of a spoiler. I just kind of felt like you should know that going in, because I thought he was going to be prominently featured, but no. They took that away from me.
And let's not forget about these new minor supporting characters. One of them in particular is a new male supporting character who is just so annoying with his like, screams. Like, right. Whenever there's a dinosaur coming, it's like, ah!
Yeah, they overdid it, and poor guy. I mean, he probably had more depth, but didn't give him that opportunity, so...
So let's get into yet another reason as to why this movie is preposterous. Let's start with preposterous. Let's start with the story. Let's start with the lack of story. Let's start with the hokey and cheesy dialogue. Okay. Lenny, this movie just took a weird turn, I think.
It did.
It didn't feel like a Jurassic Park film. It's very much unlike any of the other films in that about maybe a third into the movie, it takes this weird turn. You think for a while that they're going to expand on these interesting issues about animal rights or, just the ethics behind the whole, cloning or bringing back dinosaurs, which were the interesting conversations about the first Jurassic Park, right? Like, that's one of the reasons that made the first Jurassic Park so great. But this movie just suddenly turns into what I like to call a haunted house movie with dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think that's giving a lot away. I mean, you've seen the trailers.
You see the trailer.
Yeah,
you see most of the movie in the trailer as far as like the basic premise. So when you take a look at this movie, it's going to have a lot of your Jurassic Park themes that are rolled into here as far as mad scientists, the question of ethics of creating creatures, stuff like that.
Playing God.
Exactly.
Right.
And they actually take that a step further in this one. I'm not going to give it away, but that is interesting. But again, they didn't develop that aspect very well either.
No, I think they were trying to put in too many things, you know, and then things that have been sort of like revisited already enough in previous Jurassic Park films, and I don't know, they should have not really introduced those issues if they weren't really going to flesh them out anymore. And the movie just turns into this like chase sequence, basically.
Yeah.
Cool dinosaurs.
Yeah, there were.
Cool-looking dinosaurs.
And we'll get to that when we get to the positives, but I still want to continue bashing the movie.
Let's bash this movie.
Because it really hurt my feelings because I love this franchise.
Yeah, I really want to bash this movie. Let's do it.
All right. So going back to their central conflicts, their central issues, we're talking about things dealing with preservation of society. We're talking also about who's to blame for certain things, who's complicit and who is not.
That's right. Only very poorly done.
Yeah, exactly, because like you said, they bring up these issues and then they let them go.
And then, probably one of the most absurd villains in recent memory.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, like, so laughable.
Very flat, very two-dimensional.
Very flat, very two-dimensional, but also how idiotic do they portray this villain, you know?
Yes.
And like, he does everything that you normally, in a cliched way see villains do, you know? There's several things that you feel like, oh, that's so, overdone. Like, come on, like, why are we doing this in a Jurassic Park film? It's just like a bad horror film.
Now, speaking of cliches and things that are overdone, okay, let's take the dinosaurs, okay? There were so many moments that kept you on your seat, which were interesting and engaging, but they had too many of them. It was overdone. There were way too many of those, just barely made it moments.
Just barely made it.
There were some very dramatic shots in there. So many of those. I was like, okay, stop with
Everything is over the top. Everything is overdone. The sequences were, on the island at the beginning. And then, of course, because the whole movie, of course, the premise is that the island is about to, erupt this volcano. So
we gotta save the dinosaurs.
Of course, Owen and Claire are back to try to save some of the dinosaurs from becoming extinct again. And even some of the scenes on the island were super drawn out. A lot of CGI for the sake of showing you a lot of CGI. And, when you go into the other part of the movie in the house, it's a lot of more over the top. Look at this cool dinosaur. Look at this cool dinosaur. Look at this new, species of mutated, dinosaur.
I don't want to give away the name, but the name is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that either.
It was like, dum dum dum, here's the name. Yeah, I was like, well, that's ridiculous. That's stupid. I do want to mention one last thing that was overdone. They had so many nods to the original Jurassic Park film. They harkened back to so many images. I counted 10, and I was just starting halfway through the movie. I'm sure there were twice as many as those. It was way too obvious. If they wanted to harken back to something from the first Jurassic Park, how about harken back to an actual storyline? Yeah. Honestly, about the only thing that I can say good about this movie was that if you're an action junkie and you love dinosaurs, well, there's a lot of that for you because that's what this movie hinges on. So there's that. You mentioned the CGI. It didn't bother me too much. I didn't think it was poorly done or overdone for that matter. Again, the scenes were too much for me.
No, the CGI was good. It's just that it was a little over the top, a little too much. And, yeah, I agree. I think that the only redeeming quality about this movie is basically the action sequences are pretty good. Yeah. In particular, the ones towards the beginning. There's I don't want to give stuff away, of course, but there's an underwater action scene that's very well shot and exciting. And but I was not happy watching this movie overall, Lenny.
Would you say it's one of the worst Jurassic Park movies made?
Right now, for me, honestly, it feels like the worst one. Maybe I have to watch it again, but I think that
I don't think you're gonna budge on it.
I think The Lost World, which was the sequel, right, by Steven Spielberg, is better than this. I even think Jurassic Park. That's part two, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Part 3, I even think is slightly better than this, even though it's pretty bad. And I really enjoyed, the first Jurassic World with Chris Pratt.
It had a little more story to it, a little more, depth, a little more substance, and even then, that movie still wasn't all that great.
I think this is the worst one for me, at least.
All right, I kind of think that's all we need to say about this movie. They do have an interesting cliffhanger-ish thing toward the end of the movie, so there's that. Hopefully that'll give them an avenue to salvage this franchise. My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, grades.
Yeah, let's get this out of the way because
I will go first.
Okay. Why don't you do that
first?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So no surprise, I wasn't a big fan of this movie, but I did enjoy Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard's acting, despite the lack of a real story arc, character arc, and the CGI didn't bother me. I loved the action sequences, even though too many. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a C.
Wow.
That's probably being generous, huh?
That is extremely generous for this movie, Lenny.
I do love the franchise, though.
I know, and this is why I'm so upset, because I love Jurassic Park. I love the first Jurassic Park. I love The Lost World. Well, not as much as the first Jurassic Park, but this was so weird. This movie took such a weird left turn. It didn't feel like Jurassic Park.
That third act was different.
Solid D plus for me.
Yep.
Yeah. The plus, I guess, is because of my soft spot for these dinosaur films and the actors, but otherwise this is not the way I want to see the franchise going. If they do come up with a next film, I hope they do something better than just a bad dinosaur horror chase movie.
Maybe find another director, better writers, whatever you have to do. You have to salvage this beautiful franchise.
For sure.
Okay. All right, so that'll do it for us today, guys. As always, comment below if you think that, a C is too generous or a D is too harsh.
D is too harsh, yeah,
okay,
right.
Let us know.
Yeah.
How does this rank as far as the other Jurassic Park movies? And of course, always, guys, if you love our channel, go ahead and subscribe.
Thank you very much for watching, and also don't forget to download that Stardust app and follow us at Beto Cuckoo.
And I am at LJ5625.
Thanks for watching.
Peace.
Yeah, Lenny, they are not talking. You're absolutely right about that one.
Pause.
What?
I don't have my lavalier. I don't have my lapel on. Well, that was good practice.